Welcome to the Concepts of Cooking. My name is Joseph Passy, and today we will be talking about cured and cold smoked salmon. First step, as always, before you do anything in the kitchen, wash your hands. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Wash your hands really well. Don't just act like you're washing them. Wash up your wrists. Wash really well, rinse really well, really hot water. Dry really well with disposable paper towels. So once you got that done, salmon. I buy only the best sustainably farmed salmon, called Nordic Blue. There it is, the star of the show. It's all about the waters, the cleanliness, what they're feeding them, how they protect them against parasites. So we'll start with some whole spices, whatever flavors you'd like. I've got coriander, cinnamon, and some chili our bowls, amongst about a dozen other. We'll throw those into the oven, 350 degrees. Every 2 minutes I rotate that 180 degrees. This is a convection oven, so I've got a fan in there. There's a very good oven, probably a lot better than anybody has at home. This took 6 minutes out of this oven. Just make sure you're always rotating it. Just because that little bit of smoke comes out doesn't mean it's done yet. Spin it around, put it back in there. Those chilies aren't quite ready, and neither is the coriander. You'll see a nice toasted color when they're ready. The chili arbola's will turn from a vibrant red to a deep crimson. From there, we'll make sure we get them cooled off, because the essential oils are quite loose right now, so we don't want to shove those into a spice grinder while they're hot, and it kind of creates kind of a paste. It's not a paste, but it kind of clumps all together. That being said, well, before that being said, this first batch I do with all the big stuff. It seems to grind up better if there's not a whole lot of small stuff in there to get in the way. Get it nice and ground up. You want that to be evenly distributed into your cure, which we will get to once these are all ground up. In between each grind, make sure you're getting all that old spice out of the grinder. Otherwise, the stuff that's in the bottom will actually get burnt through friction of the blade spinning. It'll also turn it kind of cakey. And once all this is ground up, we're going to measure out some sugar and salt. That's the main part of this cure. That's really what you're here for. The rest of this is just flavoring, but the science of it is in the cure. So the cure is just two parts, sugar and salt. Mostly sugar though. It's almost a 2-to-1 ratio. It's 15 parts sugar to 8 parts salt, which actually equates to 1 tablespoon less than a cup of sugar to a half cup of salt. The sugar is just granulated. The salt, I use Morton Purex. You can also use kosher salt, but you're paying for the flake of the kosher salt. You're basically just trying to use pure sodium chloride. Put the spices in here and make sure you mix it very, very well. This is on 2 times speed for this part. I do spend quite a fair amount of time making sure I'm getting all of it. You'll see that color come up, especially in the very bottom center of the bowl. Just make sure you mix it very, very well. You want it evenly distributed. If you're wondering, the spice blend is 3% of the cure blend by weight. Alright, so once you've got this all really well mixed, we will get ready to bury the salmon in it. Here it is again, the star of the show. As you can see, the fat content is incredible. It's about 22 to 23% fat content on average. So I'll put it into a Lexan. This is a Lexan. big plastic container, very sturdy. We'll start by putting a little bit of cure in the bottom, say about 1/8 of an inch. When I put the salmon in, I put them opposite of each other, head to one end, tail to the other, and then as I build my way up, I rotate it so that it stays even all the way up. Otherwise you'll end up with a big sloping bit, and you'll need a lot more cure to cover it all. The next step will be to let it sit for 24 hours. The longer you let it go, the more moisture it's going to pull out. The first one is immediately, then this next frame is after 1 hour. I left this sitting on the counter for the first 2 hours. And then I put it into the refrigerator for the remaining 22 hours. This is what it looks like. You can see a little bit of white there, but that's kind of where the excess is, away from the tips and the tails of the fish. So now that that's cured for 24 hours, I pull this out. Be very gentle with it. You don't want to damage the fish. I dig it all out from the sides and pile up all the salmon on this tray. From there, I'm going to wash it all off. Now, how much you wash it depends on how long you've cured it for. With just curing it for this 24 hours, you don't really need to leach any of the salt out of it. So it just takes a good rinsing with some cold water. Just make sure you use your hand very gently to wash away all the cure. You don't want any of that there. Now, if you want to go for a lot longer, you will have to leach some of those salts out by soaking it in water. But that's another episode and another dish. So once you've got it all nice and washed off, we need to get it dry. You don't want to smoke wet meat. The smoke will end up just hitting the water and beating off. So I put most of these into my walk-in, which has a fan running, which will blow it dry. But the first ones that I smoke, I pat dry with some paper towels. The flesh should be tacky. It gives the smoke something to stick to. Once that's ready, you need to set up your smoker. Don't take this so literally, just think of the concept of it. There's many ways to do this, and we actually use a couple different techniques depending on the mood and the amount of time that we have. So now we need to set up the smoker. Start with the Lexan, just big sturdy container. That's a heavy duty metal container that I can use a blowtorch on. Then that's a roasting rack, and if you notice there's nubs on it pointing upwards. That's going to help keep an air gap. That metal pan is to put ice in it. That'll be above the flame. And then this is a perforated pan, which I'll put the salmon on. Then we'll wrap the salmon in the top of that with just some standard plastic wrap. Get it nice and tight. So we'll get our salmons in there. Just be gentle with them. Try not folding them in half. You'll see me hold them generally by one end of them so it can stay straight. When you hold them by both ends, it tends to sag in the middle. You only have to do that when you have to fit it in these containers. So get this plastic wrap on, get a nice seal to it. And then we're going to put ice in the bottom of this Lexan. And we are going to blowtorch some apple wood pellets. I get them good and burning, so I got some good coals so that once the flame goes out, it can still smolder for a while. So I get some ice in the bottom. I fill it up enough to completely cover the sides of this container. Then I put that roasting rack on upside down so that those points are pointing upward. Those are going to give me an air gap so that the fire can breathe a little bit. Then get that tray of ice on top of that. followed by the tray of salmon. I poke a couple holes, one on each end. That'll allow for it to breathe in one side and breathe out the other. You can see that happening. It's breathing in on the right side of the screen, breathing out on the left side. About every 15 minutes you got to pull this apart, re-blowtorch it, and put it back together. I do this 4 times. I actually did it 5 times on this batch because that first bit of wood chips didn't give me as much as I would have liked. So I got some fresh ones for the second burn. That's why I threw that pan off to the side. Here's some fresh ones. But there's no point in wasting wood chips. It still gives you flavor. So yeah, about an hour worth of good steady smoke. As you saw, even when I pulled that out, there was still smoke wafting out. Just keep an eye on it, make sure that ice stays ice. As I smoke these 8 fillets, that's 4 hours, give or take, about 45 minutes. As you can see, the smoke is rolling. Just keep an eye on it, keep it burning. It's not too hard. It smells really good too. Shake them up, get some of those coals deeper down in, and some fresh ones on top. The later into the burn you go, actually the better it smokes, it seems, once you got some good burnt coals in the bottom of it. And once it's gone for an hour, we'll put it on a sheet trays, plastic wrap it, label it, and refrigerate it. That will last up to a week according to food code. I'd say it's more like 10 days, but I don't know, that's just my assumption because it never lasts that long in the kitchen. Here you can see the smoke just rolling. And here coming up, we'll do one last burn on it before we put it away. Also, as I was saying, as I smoke these 8 fillets, I will have to change the water out on, or the ice out on that tray after 2 hours, and I'll have to change the water, every 1 hour. And I'll have to change the water in the bottom every 2 hours. You want to make sure everything stays nice and cold. But ice water is very cold, so just because there's some water in that ice tray, it's not a bad thing. It helps conduct the cold. You can also use the salt trick on the ice. I'll talk about that in another video. I don't tend to use that. I assume the heat alone causes its own issues. So here it is, cold smoked. You can see a little bit of brown tone to it compared to prior to being smoked. Cover, label, date, refrigerate. Don't waste time out at temperature. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. To finish it off, I just put a clip of one of the ways that I process it. I will put a link to the full video of me slicing it down below. if that's something you would like to see. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope that you try this at home. No, I take that back. Don't try this at home. This is very dangerous. It might even be illegal where you're from. Out here on a pirate ship, though, we live a little bit differently. But I do hope you did learn something. And that's it. Enjoy the rest. There's a couple buttons down below. You know what to do. If you want to, do. If you don't, don't. Either way, have it. I hope to see you in the next episode.